Hi everyone, this is Kelton here from Dutch Growers. I'm at the potting desk in our wonderful Tropicals greenhouse. Today we're going to talk about soils. A lot of people just use the regular Pro Mix potting mix. It works really well for most tropicals, but for some other plants like this beautiful crocodile fern or this fishbone cactus, you might want to add a few other things just to make it a best growing medium as possible for those plants. So that's what we're going to talk about today. First off, here I have some soil. This came right from the bag. It's very loose, very light. It's actually the stuff we use in for potting up plants for you guys. So it's this HP potting mix, which is, it's more expensive than the regular potting mix in the black bags, but it's a little higher quality. But it comes really dry, really light, which is not what you want to use for planting. When you're planting, you want it to almost look lumpy. And I'm going to show you that here. So we add some water into the mix, just kind of give it a good stir. So it's a little lumpier, because otherwise, if it's not, you add it in dry, your soil is just going to compact, and then you're going to have to add more soil later, or some's going to run out the bottom. That's not what you want. So here, this is a little better. You can see it's kind of lumpy. That's a much better texture for what you want. First, for this crocodile fern, I would recommend adding a little bit of peat moss or even some of this stuff, the cocoa coir, which is the compressed blocks of shredded coconut husk. Behaves very similar to peat moss. You can see it here. I've added some water to some in this mop bucket. And it looks very similar to peat moss, and it's a little better for the environment. Peat moss harvesting can be a little bad. So got my pot over here, this guy. So we're gonna pot up this crocodile fern. Just kind of squeeze the sides of it, pull it out, and these just got watered this morning, so they're good and wet. It's always good when you're potting to take a look at the roots. So here, the roots are looking okay, nothing looks too rotten, so it's perfect to pot it up. Normally, even in a pot with a saucer, I would add some rocks in the bottom, but just for today, I'm not going to, just for showing you guys. So you add in some soil in there, and then I'm gonna add in some of this cocoa coir. So you sprinkle some in, mix it in there. Just gonna set that guy down so I can show you, just kind of mix it in there, or even easier is to actually mix it in your big bucket or whatever you're using. And the peat moss or coir just holds on to a lot more water. So, which your fern will love, likes a lot more water in there. There, it's about half full. You can even kind of squish it down a little bit. Add in your fern or whatever, like an African violet would like this, calatheas, similar mix. And then just kind of fill the soil in along the sides. And so just to clean them up, it's super easy. A brush works really well. That's what we use here. Even if the soil is a little damp, it cleans up really well. And then your pot's looking a lot nicer, ready to be, on display in your house. So that's ferns, calatheas, maranta, a bunch of different plants. And usually when I mix it, I mix, I don't know, maybe 2/3 potting soil to about 1/3 peat moss, or you can kind of play around with it, whatever ends up working best for you, but that's usually a pretty good mix. Next up, have the fishbone cactus, one of my favorites. This one's got a ton of new growth on it. So this is gonna be a little different than our ferns. So we do have, just ready to use, cactus mix. Works really well. It's got a bunch of sand and perlite in it, and it provides a lot of drainage for those plants that need a little bit more drainage. But you can add sand, which we sell here, and perlite as well, into regular potting mix, which will get similar results, it's nice to do because the cactus mix only comes in a 5-liter bag. And if you're repotting a bunch of them, and instead of buying, 3 or 4 bags of cactus mix, you can kind of make your own. So this mix, this stuff we sell or we pot up and already has quite a lot of perlite in it. But usually what you want to end up with is about, maybe 1 part potting soil to about 1 part perlite, or maybe 2 potting soil to 1 perlite, something like that. So for this guy, again, I'm gonna pop him out of here, squeezing the sides, and then so he slides out. A lot of root growth, a lot of little feeder roots you can see on there. Just kind of give them a little bit of a squeeze, loosen things up. And pot. And again, especially for a cactus, a succulent, I would add some rocks and even some charcoal in the bottom. The charcoal acts as a bit of a fungicide, which is great to add for any plant in the bottom of a pot. So same thing, I'm gonna put a little bit of soil into my pot, and then I'm gonna rip open, which I should have done before, my sand. Put some of that in there. It doesn't have to be exact, it's just kind of, you know, whatever you like. And some perlite as well. Really, for cacti and succulents, you can't have too much drainage. Okay, so now that it's all mixed up, you can see it looks a lot whiter than it normally would with all that perlite in there. So then you can add in your plant, kind of squish it down in there, and then add a little bit of soil around the outside. Really firm it up in there. Don't be afraid to get a little rough with it. They'll be fine, they'll bounce back. Squish it in. And then same thing, you can brush it off, make it look nice, maybe give it a little bit of water. Probably for cacti and succulents, if you're repotting them at this time of the year, you don't really want to add excess water, just a little bit. But for the ferns and stuff, you could add some. So then this guy's all done. Could be, I'd pot it up a little nicer and neater, but then it'd be perfect to go. And then finally, for all your regular tropicals, your peperomias, pothos, everything else, like I said, this stuff works fine. I use this stuff at home. Although often when I'm doing it, I'll add in a little extra peat moss or cocoa and a little extra perlite just to kind of zhuzh up the soil, make it a little nicer. Okay, yeah, so to pot this guy up, grab our pot, again, a little bit of rocks and charcoal in the bottom, fill it up part way, punch it down, well, a little less, and then grab some peat. I don't really have a specific ratio for this, just a little bit of both. A little bit of perlite, it's very dusty. Just to help, you know, a little more moisture retention, a little more drainage. Squish it in there. Put your plant in, again, kind of squish it down. Then you can add in your soil. And you can be rough with it, the plants will be fine even if you knock off a leaf or two. And then that's good to go. And again, you can brush it off to clean it up. We like to use just little paint brushes, little makeup brushes to clean off the leaves, which works well, especially once the soil's dry, just to make them look a little nicer. And then that one is good to go as well. Another great reason to make your own potting mix is maybe if you're an underwater, you tend to overwater, and your plants just keep dying with the regular potting mix. An option you could use would be to mix up something like this with, if you tend to underwater, add in a little cocoa, little peat, or if you overwater, maybe add in a little bit more perlite, and you should hopefully have some more success with your plants. If you have any other questions about soil mediums, please feel free to stop by, give us a call, or visit us online at dutchgrowers.com.